Imagine a single man who stood alone and challenged the entire strength of a powerful nation with vast hidden wealth. He did not use a traditional army, but instead he used the incredible power of fear and massive cash piles. The government found itself paralyzed because this one individual had more resources than the national budget of his own country. Every decision made in the high courts or the presidential palace was suddenly influenced by the shadow of his name. Citizens watched in silence as the streets became a battlefield where the law was often sold to the highest bidder. Pablo Escobar was not just a common criminal, but a force that could bend the very will of the people. His empire stretched across oceans and reached into the pockets of the most powerful leaders throughout the entire Western world. People whispered his name with a mix of genuine terror and a strange kind of respect for his absolute dominance. Yet the story we think we know about this famous kingpin is only a small part of a darker reality. But Escobar was not the real story because something much larger was moving silently behind the scenes of his rise. True power is not found in the barrel of a gun, but in the deep silence that follows a threat. The rise of this influence was built on the simple idea that every person has a price or a fear. It was not about a single biography, but about how an entire society slowly learned to look the other way. Fear acted like a cold wind that moved through the streets and chilled the hearts of every honest public official. When the law can be ignored, then, the person who controls the fear becomes the true leader of the land. This influence did not happen overnight, but grew slowly like a disease that eventually infects every part of the body. Most people chose to stay quiet because they wanted to protect their families from the violence that followed any resistance. The system of control was so perfect that it turned neighbors against each other in the name of total survival. Strength was measured by how many people you could force into total obedience without even having to fire a shot. This atmosphere of constant tension created a world where the lines between right and wrong began to fade away slowly. Wealth can buy many things, but its greatest value is the ability to purchase the silence of a good man. Loyalty was not earned through kindness, but was bought with silver or enforced with the cold edge of heavy lead. Every police officer and every judge faced a choice between a life of riches or a very sudden painful death. Money became the blood that kept the giant heart of the illegal empire beating inside the body of the state. Large houses and expensive cars were the rewards for those who chose to join the side of the invisible shadow. The law became a flexible thing that could be bent or broken if enough cash was placed on the table. It was a game where the winner took everything and the loser was buried in an unmarked grave at night. This control over the economy meant that even the legitimate businesses were forced to pay for their continued peaceful existence. No one was truly safe because the influence of the money reached even the highest levels of the national government. It was a world where gold was king, and the idea of justice was becoming a very distant fading memory. We often focus on one famous face, but the truth is that the problem goes much deeper than one man. If you remove one leader, then another will simply step into the empty space to continue the profitable illegal work. This is not a story about a person, but a story about a system that lives and breathes on its own. The individual is just a temporary mask for an organization that has existed for many centuries across the whole world. When one king falls, the crown is quickly picked up by a new person who is often even more dangerous. The shift from focusing on Escobar to looking at the larger structure reveals a truth that is much more terrifying. We must look at the roots of the tree instead of just looking at the fruit that falls to ground. The roots are buried deep in the soil of human greed and the desire for power over other fellow humans. This shift in perspective allows us to see the invisible threads that connect the criminal to the highest social elite. To understand the chaos, we must first understand the organized structure that exists behind every single act of great violence. A mafia is not just a group of street gangs, but a highly organized system that functions like a government. It has its own rules and its own taxes, and its own way of providing protection to the local people. This system operates in the shadows, where the light of the official law can never reach the dark corners anymore. It provides jobs, and it provides order in places where the actual state has failed to help the poor citizens. By building schools and hospitals, the criminal organization gains the love and the protection of the very common people. It is a state within a state that has its own hierarchy and its own very strict code of honor. Members are bound together by blood and by secrets that they must take with them to their very final graves. The mafia is a mirror of society that shows us what happens when the official systems stop working for everyone. It is an industry of influence that transforms raw violence into a sophisticated tool for gaining massive amounts of wealth. Every member knows their place, and they know that breaking the rules will bring a very quick and final end. The first law of this secret world is the rule of silence, which is often known as the sacred omerta. To speak to the police is to sign your own death warrant and the death warrants of your entire family. Loyalty is the most valuable currency, and betrayal is the only sin that can never be forgiven by the bosses. Punishments are carried out in public to serve as a warning to anyone who might think of breaking the rules. Fear is the glue that holds the entire structure together and ensures that no one ever dares to speak out. These laws are not written in books, but are carved into the minds of every person who lives nearby them. There is no trial, and there is no appeal, because the word of the boss is the only final law. Every action must serve the interests of the family, and personal feelings are never allowed to get in the way. This strict discipline creates a machine that is almost impossible for any outside force to break or to fully destroy. Under these rules, the business of crime can grow and expand without any fear of interference from the local police. Crime is not just a series of random acts, but a global industry that generates billions of dollars every year. It follows the laws of supply and demand, just like any other legitimate business in the modern capitalist world market. The product is moved across borders using sophisticated transport networks that bypass the security of the most powerful nations. Money laundering is the process that turns dirty cash into clean investments in hotels and banks and large construction projects. Every dollar that is spent on the street eventually finds its way into the global financial system of the world. The organization employs accountants and lawyers who use their skills to protect the wealth from the eyes of the law. It is a structured corporate entity where efficiency and profit are the only things that truly matter in the end. Competition is handled not with better products, but with the complete elimination of anyone who tries to take the market. The scale of the operation is so large that it can affect the exchange rates of national currencies very easily. This business does not just happen in the dark, but is hidden in plain sight within the world of politics. Real power is found when the criminal world and the political world shake hands behind very tightly closed office doors. Politicians need money for their campaigns, and the crime bosses have more money than they could ever spend alone. This relationship creates a system where the laws are written to protect the very people who are breaking them daily. Manipulation and pressure are used to ensure that the police look the other way when the shipments arrive at night. It is a dangerous dance where the lines between the protector and the predator become very blurred and very confusing. The influence is not always through violence, but through the subtle promise of future wealth and very high social status. When a leader is owned by the mafia, then the entire country is effectively being run by the criminal organization. Decisions about war and peace are sometimes made to protect the interests of those who control the illegal trade routes. This level of corruption is the ultimate goal of any mafia because it provides the ultimate form of total protection. The shadow government becomes the real power, while the elected officials are just puppets on a very long string. A network without borders is a network that can never be fully captured or destroyed by any single national army. The connections reach from the mountains of South America to the high glass towers of the cities in North America. It is a web that covers the entire globe and links people of every language and every different social background. Knowledge and technology are shared between different groups to make the smuggling operations even more efficient and very hard to find. The expansion is driven by the human desire for things that are forbidden and the massive profits they always bring. Even with the most modern satellite technology, the flow of illegal goods continues to move across the planet every day. Every time a route is closed, a new one is opened because the system is designed to adapt very quickly. This global reach means that a decision made in one country can cause violence in a city thousands miles away. The monster has many heads, and cutting off one head only makes the other heads grow much larger and stronger. We are looking at a force that is as permanent and as powerful as the very weather that surrounds us. We believe that governments are in control, but that might just be a comfortable illusion that we tell ourselves daily. Control is not a solid thing, but a fragile balance between those who have the law and those who have money. Sometimes the state allows the crime to exist because the alternative would be a total collapse of the local economy. The illusion of safety is maintained as long as the violence stays in the poor neighborhoods and away from elites. We see the arrests on the news, but we never see the deals that are made in the private rooms. The war on drugs is often a war on the small players, while the big bosses remain safe and untouched. It is a theater where everyone plays their role to keep the public from seeing the reality of the situation. When the system itself is part of the crime, then there is no one left to protect the innocent people. We are taught to trust the uniform, but the person wearing it might be working for the other side instead. This realization makes us question everything we know about the world and the people who claim to lead us today. Escobar was never the only one. He was just one face of a system that exists everywhere, under different names in different countries. From the streets of Colombia to the shadows of Japan, Russia, and Italy, the same system survives, so who is really controlling it now?